Alright guys, now that you have the whole outer layer pretty much disconnected, just make sure that it's actually cut fully throughout. And just by bending it a couple times, it should break loose. Alright, so now you have these middle components where they have spot welds. You can either just mark an X on them and cut them, or you can get a punch them in the middle, and then drill them out, which you can see here. So this is where it's spot welded to. If I can get that bended out for you. Remember, this is all just sheet metal, so it's very thin sheet metal. Maybe 20 gauge sheet metal. I say anywhere from 16 to 20 gauge sheet metal. It's really not that thick. There was a spot weld right there, which is connected to your cylinder lock, which connects to the trunk. I mean, if you don't care about your cylinder lock, you can get rid of that whole thing and just plug up the hole on that side. So you can do that over here. So, all right, we are pretty much all set on cutting that skin, that outer skin, and now I just have to cut the inner skin so I can go ahead and remove the rest of this metal, and then I can continue to cut any other excess that I don't want in the trunk portion of this. So I'll go ahead and I'll start cutting pieces off so I don't get cut while I'm cutting these. So the idea is I'm going to cut this right here. I'm also going to cut this right here, the support layer of metal, and then I'll cut on the outside so this can be released. And I'll go ahead and I'll cut this all the way throughout, pretty much all the way until I reach this side right here. And then this whole piece should be released. And that's pretty much it for this. And then little portions of metal that you want to cut out and release from this trunk, that's all you can do that from there. Before you begin to cut anything out of the trunk, remove your tail lights, because you will cut into those. That's a guarantee. You'll cut into your wiring, you'll cut into your plastic lights, and then you'll have to replace them. And why replace them if they don't need to be replaced? So I'll go ahead and I'll continue on that. So let's get started, get back to it. Let me cut this off, get that out the way. got those two big portions out the way, go ahead and try and sandwich these two together as much as you can. That way you get the room to cut this out. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Okay guys, this is essentially what the trunk looks like skin. There is a little bit more you can do to it, but as soon as you get that top layer cut, you can see exactly what else you need to cut if you do want to continue cutting away the little bit that is left. Alright, so we're going to get started on the inside of the interior on the EG. You can cut those top panels if you want right there, slice, and then the opposite side you can do as well and get those cut. There is some glue, so I would grab a heat gun and then slowly pry away that glue that is stuck to it. Another note is around the windows. When you're cutting around the windows, don't get too close. Windows do not like heat and they will shatter. You don't want to get too close to those windows because they will shatter. So just keep that in mind. But let's go. We'll go ahead and we'll get started. Alright, let's get to it. I'm going to go ahead and get started with knocking this piece off because that is going to get in the way. Just be careful as you're cutting over here because this is the wheel well. If you cut into this, you're going to have a hole on your wheel well where your wheel sits, and that's not going to be pretty because as you're driving, if you are driving it in the weather, you're going to get rain and it's going to start to cause rust. So keep that in mind. Like I said, just cut above. That way you know it's a safe area, and then come back later with the grinder and grind it nice and smooth. So don't worry about that right yet. Just worry about getting the big portions cut out of the way, and we'll worry about the little portions that need to be grinded down. Over here, I actually colored in with permanent marker these spot welds. Keep those spot welds. You don't want to cut into the spot welds, but more so cut in right here. The permanent marker was more of a guideline, so don't cut over here, because this is your pillar, your B pillar right here, and that's your support. You can cut into that if you're going full track, but maybe later on I'll show you another video in regards to that. But Alright, so we're getting into the tricky part. There is a, I guess you could say, a support beam in the back of here. You might be able to catch it on camera. But over there, it's some spot welds. There are spot welds. That you'll find behind here. There is a sheet of metal. That does get tricky, but we can also cut that out as well, as we don't really necessarily need it. So we can also cut that out as well. So let me go ahead and bring you guys closer so you can take a quick look at it. So essentially this is what you're looking at here. It becomes very, very close to the quarter panel. So you do want to be very careful when you are cutting that, because you're going to cut it straight across. You can see where I started, and be very, very careful because you will cut into the quarter panel. But basically you'll cut straight across, cut that line, and then we're going to go and follow that permanent marker straight across. Or should I say that top cut right there. But let me get you back on the tripod and we'll get cutting. Okay, so essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut the skin right here. I'm going to cut a nice piece of